You can probably imagine my excitement not long ago when I saw the promotional videos for Season of the Defiant included a fresh look at a new exotic bow, and not just any kind either. I'm talking a Stasis exotic bow, the first of its kind at that time. My hopes and expectations were pretty high. After all, bows like TQ's Divination and Trinity Ghoul have left a strong impression on the Destiny community in recent years. So this bow is definitely going to be a killer too, right? Right? To understand my disappointment, we need some context. Exotic bows have historically broken the mold of their archetype. What do I mean by that? Well, as I understand bows in their purest form, they're high precision, decent single target damage, but generally poor ad clear and struggle to control overwhelming hordes of enemies within close proximity. Each of the last few exotic bows have in their own way broken this mold. As recently as Season of the Seraph, we got Hierarchy of Needs, which soars to nearly the top of primary weapon DPS with just a little setup. Before that, we were gifted another solar monster in TQ's Divination, which had tracking arrows and extremely high damage explosive arrows that minimize the need for precision while also dominating groups of enemies and majors. And I find it really difficult to tire of TQ's Divination. It's so simple, effective, powerful, and frankly beautiful. Destiny's always been at its best when your enemies are exploding. Why do you think we love Fatebringer so much? Going even further back in time, we have Trinity Ghoul, a weapon so effective at ad clearing that the only reason you would take it off is because you're bored and you want to try some variety. You don't even need to aim, just get a single kill in hipfire and watch the chaos rain down as lightning chains enemy after enemy. Again, another simple yet delightful weapon. So when I grabbed Verglas Curve from the season pass, I hoped for at least a reminiscent experience like that. Something powerful, synergistic, something that made you feel utterly beyond your foes. And this is what we got. It's not a bad bow, I don't think so at all. But what does it do that's special? How does it break the mold? Does it control groups of enemies or deal exceptional single target damage? I understand not every exotic's gonna do that, and that is totally fine. There are a lot of exotics in the game these days. We've come a long way since having a vault space of 20. But Verglas Curve is the first in its class, the first exotic Stasis bow, and it's something I've been waiting to see how Bungie would iterate on since Beyond Light launched over 2 years ago now. So why exactly is Verglas Curve just mid when evaluated against its counterparts, and how can we improve on it a little? Well, when I was examining the other exotic bows we have, one thing I noticed was the factor I think of as setup. What do you have to do to get the highest level of efficacy out of that weapon? TQ requires a hipfire shot, and then some precision grants increasingly powerful explosions. Trinity Ghoul just requires a kill with arc, and that's about it. Can even be an ability, and then it's just GG's from there. Monarch's Poison Blast just requires a perfect draw, so what about Verglas Curve? Well, each kill charges your bow up to 5 stacks, at which any point you can hipfire, which shoots either a spread of crystals if it hits terrain or freezes targets on direct contact. So for maximum effect, it takes 5 kills, after which you can shoot 5 crystals. Already, it takes significantly more setup than the others to have arguably less utility than the others at their maximum power. And I'll dive into why that is exactly a little bit more later. Not to mention this bow is a lightweight bow, which maybe it's just a personal thing, but I hate the way these things handle. They lack range, and their accuracy is absolute junk. Headshots register as body shots all the time, it feels like, which just makes Verglas Curve frustrating and needlessly unrewarding. My second issue is that other weapons already kind of do what Verglas Curve does. Well, what do you mean? I thought this was a first-in-class exotic bow. Well, yes, but we have had some Stasis bows in the meantime that can roll with a headstone. Now, if you think about it, headstone spawns a single crystal on a headshot. Verglas Curve also credits you with 1 charge when you get a kill, so in a way, it's not a lot different than a legendary bow with a headstone. It's just that you can hold these charges and save them for later. While that's not necessarily weak on its own, I don't think it's particularly innovative either, and doesn't do much to break that mold that we've been talking about. I certainly don't think it impresses when the context for the conversation is the other exotic bows in the room either. Lastly, Verglas Curve is just another unfortunate Stasis victim of Lightfall's subclass revisions. Before Lightfall, you could equip elemental shards, which made shards function like elemental wells when you picked them up, which is effectively the primary gateway for Stasis into build crafting with your mods. The subclass side of things is still good, but the mods are kind of where Stasis struggles now. Why is that? Nowadays you can create orbs of power a variety of ways, but probably the easiest way is through melee and grenades. However, Stasis melee and grenade abilities are more like utilities instead of a lethal ability like a scatter grenade, for example. You're just not getting a ton of kills directly with grenades or melees, using them more as tools. So in turn, just about every Stasis weapon has suffered a little bit in the wake of these subclass changes, because it's just harder to feed into armor charges than it used to be. Now you certainly have access to Stasis Siphon mods or Reaper, those are both very good, but the point still stands that it's just not quite what it used to be. Alright, so that's a lot of negative stuff, but at the end of the day, I do still like this weapon. The concept's cool, it can be a lot of fun. I just think a few well-tuned changes could send this weapon over the edge into goated territory and break that mold just like Trinity Ghoul and the rest of the exotic crew. A lot like how Winterbite's melee slows targets, I think Verglas Curve base arrows should apply some slowing to targets. This way when you're dealing with tougher targets, you can apply slowing and eventually freeze them as well for more overall damage. Not to mention this would pair nicely with some stasis fragments as well. I think overall it would just give a nice boost to the build crafting element of this bow. Next, I think it'd be really complimentary if applying freeze with any of your stasis abilities grants crystal charges for your bow too, a lot like how Trinity Ghoul becomes overcharged anytime you get an arc kill. That'd just be one more layer that you could seamlessly integrate with your stasis abilities and keep your bow amped up. Lastly, the catalyst right now feels pretty unimaginative. So what if we change it to Headstone? Maybe not the most imaginative change either, but this way you're double dipping into crystals on kills, and then those kills also charge your bow. That trait to me seems like one of the most natural pairings you could make. Honestly, I'd be happy to see any or all of these changes get implemented, because Verglas Curve just feels a little underwhelming right now. I've actually made videos like this in the past about certain exotics getting catalysts, and some of those suggestions in that video a couple years ago actually came true, so while Bungie is definitely never going to see this video, I think these ideas here are perfectly within the realm of possibility. Overall, this bow isn't that far from being great, but it's also not amazing right now the way that it is. Bungie set a pretty strong precedent with exotic bows in the past, and I'd love to see them push Verglas Curve to that same higher level of synergy and power. The rest of the exotic bows do something special, and Verglas just isn't quite there yet. So there you have it. Good bow, but kind of mid when you look at it with the rest of the exotics. Before I get out of here, you can pick this thing up for free on the seasonal pass track at rank level 35. So fortunately, this one isn't going to actually cost you anything for any free players. I think it'd be worth picking up, and I'm guessing it'll get buffed in the future. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you want to see more Destiny videos, then definitely make sure to subscribe. As always, thank you so much for watching. Catch you guys next time.